Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Goldfish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is April 24th, 2018, and we have a very special interview for you. We have returning with us is our friend, Dr. Scott Werner, with another incredible message, and also our co-host of Country Roads, Winston Shrout. So let me welcome both of you. Hi, Winston. Good to see you
Oh,
today. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Today we're going to be talking about what's, a very interesting experience that Scott's had recently on his lecture circuit. He's been meeting people and having a lot of interesting experiences, and has a message from a very um, an ascended master we don't really hear from very often, and this is Serapis Bey, and he is the ray of purity, so he's part of the seven rays. And the message is about that we really need to stop judging ourselves and to start loving ourselves more. And Scott's going to go into more detail, but before we get started on that, I do need to go right off the top. Sorry to kind of have to do this, but I posted um, a story today from from the Facebook news page.
Yeah, there's
And
Barbara.
yeah, and the problem with this is that the captions in the original video here show that this is the funeral of Barbara Bush. However, you see Nancy Reagan here and you see Barbara Bush here, in fact. But the captions on the video actually indicate that it's talking about Melania Trump sitting next to Barack Obama. So there's some video fakery involved in this. And I posted that here. I posted this. Benjamin Fulford reported this yesterday, that there was media fakery going on about this. So my point in posting this, and I noticed a few groups actually deleted it because people did not read the caption. They didn't read and see that this is about, these are question marks. There's obviously something wrong with this. That was the point in posting it. It's not that I was trying to post this as news. I was trying to post this as fake news to alert people. So please be careful in reading the caption. And if you played the video, you would also see kind of a problem. We do have Melania Trump sitting next to Barack Obama, and the camera pans across. So there's some fakery involved in this, and I wanted to expose it. That was the point of posting the video. So having said that, we've got that out of the way. I just wanted our viewers to know that that was the point. And sadly, I think it was lost on a lot of people who just glanced at it very quickly. So I am not in the business of spreading fake news, people. So you have to kind of realize something might not be quite right. So I'm glad we got that got past that. And so you're telling me, Scott, that we have a beautiful message, and I can't wait to hear it. And
Well,
the
before we
floor is
get to
yours.
that, Louisa, I have comments
Sure.
because I feel so severely underdressed. This video, I like for Scott to explain just exactly how it is that he came so well prepared in his apparel.
Okay.
Oh, heavens. When I was preparing to go to Taos, New Mexico, I made contact with a man by the name of Anthony Sanchez, and he runs the St. Germain Sanctuary there in Taos, New Mexico. And anyway, he was checking me out. He's like, well, when St. Germain came to you, what was he wearing? And I was like, well, he had kind of a white tunic on and a violet robe and his medallion of the cross. And he's like, did he give you a violet robe? And I said, no. And he said, well, he gave me one. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? And so anyway, we went down to Las Vegas last month for my birthday and went to the Michael Jackson show there at the Mandalay Bay. And that night I was asking St. Germain, what's the deal with the violet robe that you gave Anthony? And St. Germain said, go to Dillard's tomorrow. I've got a gift for you. And so anyway, he told me to go out to Henderson, Nevada, which is, a suburb of Las Vegas. And sure enough, right front and center was this violet jacket. And I tried it on. It fit perfectly. And I went over and I got Vicky, and she came over and she looked at it and she says, it's just too expensive. We don't want to buy that. And I'm like, well, it's a gift from St. Germain. She says, well, no, it's too expensive. Let's wait till it goes on sale. So we left it sitting there because we're kind of cheap. We buy off the sales rack all the time. But anyway, it was quite interesting. I was kind of lamenting that I hadn't bought the jacket. And the following Monday, here comes this package in the mail at my business. And inside of the package was the jacket. And it was like, holy cow, what happened here, you know?
Well, he said it was a gift.
Yep.
It was a gift. It was a gift from St. Germain. So I'm supposed to wear this, and I wore it the last 2 times I've been teaching in other towns. I went up to Colorado, up to Vail, Colorado, in a town called Avon. I kept calling it Avon, but she kept correcting me. It's Avon. And it was an amazing experience there. We actually had so many people that we had to change venues, and we ended up at this martial arts studio that was fairly large, and had a bunch of people, and we couldn't have fit this many people in the place that was originally there. But the spirit was so powerful, and the blessings coming through were so powerful that it shifted the people there in this area. And you know, it's amazing how the Ascended Masters take care of us, and they provided a home. I mean, we went to this house and stayed at this house. The real estate agent that found it for us, she got permission from the people to use it. And they're only there 2 weeks out of the year skiing. And here's this big, beautiful house, probably a multi-million-dollar house. And it reminded me of the cabin that I received the gift of toning at up by Boise, Idaho. It was a huge, it had this huge living room with windows that just went clear up the ceiling. And as you looked out of this cabin, you could see the skiers up on the slopes even. And it was the last day of skiing up there that weekend. But, you know, it was amazing. And we did toning, and the people just were healed. And it was an amazing experience. And then this last weekend, we went to Taos, New Mexico. And it was quite interesting. This couple actually, I found out the story that they talked about. We were coming and they wanted us to have a place to stay. And this couple actually gave up their home to us. They went out and moved into their Airstream mobile home and let us sleep at their house. And it was out in the woods in all the juniper trees and just absolutely gorgeous. And pinyon pines were just all over the place. But the reason I'm telling you this is when we get on the path of serving the masters and being with them and asking for their benevolence to be with us, we're taken care of. And the thing is, you know, we as a society, we've done really good with being more open to people and being more non-judgmental and accepting of people. And it was really interesting. The night we got into Taos, the lady whose house we were staying at, she came home and prepared us some dinner, and she started talking about how Serapis Bay, we were supposed to go to the Luxor in Egypt. Now, we took a trip to Egypt many years ago, and they built a big dam on the Nile River, and it was going to totally submerge the Luxor temple. And so they took all these huge blocks of stone and actually moved the entire temple, Luxor temple, up out of the valley of the Nile up onto a higher shore so it wouldn't be inundated with the water. And this temple of Luxor was a very important temple. Karnak and Luxor were right next to each other. And those were the temples where the Pharaoh would be taken and they would emerge after the Orion and Osiris would eternalize them or make them into gods, divine divinity. So, it made it so that others couldn't even aspire to becoming, Pharaoh or anything, because these were made into gods at these two temples. And it's quite fascinating because Serapis Bey, and it's spelled Serapis, and then a space, and then Bey. He is the Lord of purity of the fourth ray. Now, there's 7 rays, 7 flames, and he, being the Lord of purity, is associated with the Mother Mary energy and the divine feminine energy. And, as we learn about these ascended masters, we learn each one of them have different focus, different purposes, but they're all in one with the purpose of helping humans get through the ascension and become ascended masters ourselves. Now, what does that all mean, to become an ascended master? Well, believe it or not, we are the children of God. We are made in the likeness and image of God, and we will go through what we call the ascension. And what Saint Germain taught me about the ascension is it's a part of the evolution of us to becoming more God-like and more aligned with the Creator. And currently, the Earth, the humans here on this planet, we're going to be going through the ascension process. And we need to get ready. And we're not ready. And so she came home with this message to go to the Ascension Temple in Luxor. Now, that temple in Luxor is a beautiful temple. And when they had to move it, they had to rebuild it. But it had some of the most beautiful artistry and different symbols in the Luxor temple. And they were all about becoming the gods. And so when she came home and said, the message at the I Am Temple tonight was we needed to focus and meditate about going to the temple in Luxor and meeting up with Serapis Bey and getting a message. And I'm always open to this kind of stuff. And I know this sounds, way, way out there. This is woo-woo to the nth degree. But let me tell you, what happened was that night I meditated and I visualized going to the Luxor temple. And that is the Ascension Temple. And by that, the Egyptians were well aware of this. And in fact, I learned that the last time humans went through the ascension, they built this temple to get them ready for the ascension. And so that's why it's called the Ascension Temple. They're in Luxor, Egypt, by the way. And, when the big uprising in Egypt come, I was told to go back to Egypt every 5 years to get rejuvenated, because we went down into the Great Pyramid, into the King's Chamber, and we did some toning in there, and the energy just rose up. While I started toning, everybody else joined in and started singing with me.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we got done toning, Vicki and I were so energized. Literally, when we come up out of the temple, we started running around the pyramids, the Great Pyramids. We had so much energy. We were just like, we had to get movement going.
So are you saying it's like a resonance, like you feel a resonance within your own body? It's like you're vibrating? You're
Yes. Not only a vibration, but an energy that made us feel like we wanted to climb up on top of the pyramid, but they'd probably thrown us in the hushka if we'd done that. But anyway, it was quite fascinating. But the reason I'm relating this story is this temple in Luxor helped initiates go through the ascension process. And so I meditated about this, and Serapis Bey appeared in the Ascension Temple. I astral traveled to the Luxor there in Egypt, and Serapis Bey was there teaching people. And, I don't know how many of you astral travel, but I started doing it way back when, because I used to do remote viewing and different things. And anyway, that's a whole past life thing now. It's been 20, 30 years ago. But astral traveling became very easy for me. And I astral traveled to this Luxor temple, and Serapis Bey was giving a lecture. And when he saw me appear, they can see you in the astral plane. And he said to me, "Scott, you're doing a very good job not judging others, but I want you to stop judging yourself. You are your own worst critic, and you need to teach this to everyone you meet." And he said, "When you get on the Goldfish report next time, I want you to teach this concept, because for the ascension, you have to stop judging yourself and be open to God's love. Because when we judge ourselves, we actually condemn ourselves. And with that condemnation, we keep our vibration down. And what we actually need to do is love ourselves enough that we bring our vibration up to the love consciousness. Because in order to ascend, we need to go into the love consciousness." Go ahead.
But Scott, we have to realize that we've been programmed, first and foremost.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the programming we have to overcome, we're not even consciously aware of it. We have to become consciously aware that we have these programs running of sinners, self-doubt, not good enough, unworthiness. How can we possibly love ourselves? You're going to teach us this, right? I mean, it's been a personal process for myself too, but I did learn to make the jump. And, but I do catch myself with sometimes but I realize when I do catch myself with maybe this internal doubts of some kind, that it's I notice it, and I do know it's programming, but I can't always change it. And a friend of mine always says, if there's anything that you ever do, just please be more careful of what you're thinking and saying, mostly what you're saying, because those negative thoughts are going to just attract more of it. We're manifesting things almost instantaneously these days. So we have to be, right, Winston? We have to be so impeccable with our words, because we're really literally manifesting them. Isn't that right, Winston?
Yeah. Let me make a couple of comments about what Scott was saying about judgment.
Right.
See, I've always had a hard time with this since I got here on the planet, because I didn't bring any karma. I'm not reincarnated, and I didn't bring any karma with me. So it's always been a mystery to me about humans, how they do and how they act. But I wanted to comment on the concept of judgment. If you look at the statue that they call Lady Justice, you'll notice that the scale is balanced. And so when we start to talk about judgment, then we're starting to talk about balance. And so, most people, it appears, are highly out of balance. And that's what, I commented, that last interview we did where I talked about Joey Corn,
Right.
where he was taking negative energies and he was balancing them to the best effect. Now, when we start to talk about loving yourself, this is a real problem, for people, because they're out of balance. And if they can start to, get both sides of the equation, working together, then they come into balance, and then they can experience love of self without it being a handicap. And I think probably Ho'oponopono is one very good technique that people can use to obtain that balance with their higher self. Because in essence, what Ho'oponopono is saying, is that they're sorry that they have not recognized their own divine creation. And then they're, trying to get that balance going on. So I the word judgment, we use it probably improperly and stuff like that. So when you start to think about the word judgment, replace it with the word balance. And I think that it will, it would have the effect that Scott's trying to get here to. And then applying some of the techniques, the Ho'oponopono and so forth, and you can start to realize, the truthfulness of that.
Thanks, Winston. No, that's excellent. That's an excellent point. It's about balance. And Scott's going to tell us how to do that. Right?
As you gave the picture of the woman holding the balance, holding you always look at the justice as being a balance. And one of the teachings that Serapis Bey gave me at that was, during this ascension, we're not going to have hardly anybody become ascended because we've got so much karma behind us that we've been working out, and we really kind of, the earth has been in a situation where we've been dummied down, we've been programmed wrongly, and all these things have affected us as humans, and we've done some really crazy things that have not been good, and so that balance has been way out of balance. But one of the things Serapis Bey taught me this 3 days ago, literally, was that we only have to get to 51% and it will send us on to the ascension. 51%. In other words, not 50-50. We just get that extra 1%. So focusing just a little bit extra is going to charge us up with positive, good energy that's going to get us through the ascension.
Right, but we have a belief in lack. Yeah. The problem is we have a belief in lack on this planet. Yeah. And that's what's holding us back, Scott. How do we deal with that? What do we do? I mean, here you were provided for. You said if you're in service to the higher divinity, then you'll be provided for. But we have this belief in lack. Is this for everybody? You're saying this is for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so what we do is, instead of focusing on the lack or the needs, we focus on creating abundance, basically, and creating non-judgment in ourselves for our lack. Because, we look at ourselves and we think, oh, geez, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. And, we judge ourselves so much. And so what we do is shift that conscious behavior into loving ourselves, knowing that God will take care of us. one of the teachings of Jesus, he said to the people, after they asked him the question, how do we attain uh, the abundance of God? And he said, you've got to stop worrying where your next meal's coming from. The birds, the bees, the trees, they never worry about God taking care of them because God takes care of them. And are you any less than all of these creations? In other words, he was saying you are the greatest of God's creations, and you need to have the faith of the birds and the bees and the trees that God's going to take care of us. And God does take care of us. And it's our own self-judgment and beliefs of not having God take care of us that has created the problems. And part of the indoctrination and the dumbing down was making us believe we were slaves. We were indentured servants. We're not worthy of the blessings of God. And so the message of Serapis Bey was, stop judging yourself and know that you are divine. Know that you are a creation, a beautiful creation of God, and that you are worthy to obtain all the abundance, all the blessings, and the blessing of the ascension. A lot of people go, oh, geez, I've done too many bad things. I'll never ascend. I'll never get through this. But that's not true. You have to take your thoughts and know that the love of God and the love of self will create the energy to move you to that 51%. Now, when we talk about karma, it's all the accumulation of past lives. It's the accumulation of all the doggery, all of the negative things that we've done. And we've actually been working out a lot of that karma for 26,000 years or more, because we're at a new cycle. And every cycle, everybody is given the blessing of starting over. And so at the end of this cycle, we are at the point of the ascension, not only of all of us, but the planet and everything on the planet. And, it was interesting. People were asking, well, what exactly is the ascension? And it's a change from us evolving from third dimensional beings into fifth dimensional beings. And that involves changing our atomic structure into plasma and light structure, which means with plasma, you can create whatever you desire. You can create atomic stuff. You can create plasma stuff. I mean, it's a whole new universe that we're going to be living in. By universe, I mean, it's a fifth dimensional universe. It's right here, but it's so vibrating so high, third dimensionals can't see it unless they raise their vibration to see it. People who see fifth dimensional beings, sixth dimensional beings, seventh, we raise our vibration. We're actually interdimensionally charged, and we can see into other dimensions. Now, one of the blessings I gave a lady there in Denver, it was quite fascinating because she was a walk-in at the age of 35, and it totally shifted her life. Now, by walk-in, I mean all of a sudden her soul left her body and another soul came in that was from a higher dimension. And the being that came into her was a sixth dimensional being. And she had felt so out of place and unconnected to this third dimension from the age of 35 that she felt very alone. But it was
like me.
Yeah, but it was quite fascinating because as I went through her blessing, all of a sudden, one of the Arcturian ships that is around the Earth, there's 8 Arcturian motherships, and these are 6-dimensional beings in these ships, and they started communicating to me, and I told her stuff that was just amazing. And when I got done channeling this information from the Arcturian ship, she understood totally why she had come into the planet and why she was here to help people with the ascension. Because the Arcturians are a very benevolent group of well, I don't even like calling them aliens, because they're human beings that have gone through the ascension and actually ascended on into the 6th dimension. Very benevolent beings of light. And they are here to assist all of us through the ascension. So we can call upon the Arcturians. The Arcturians were the ones that appeared in the sky above us here in St. George, and were cleaning up all the radiation from Fukushima. And, you know, they're here to assist us and the planet with our ascension. And we can call upon them, and they will come and they will assist us in any way that we would like. Now, going back to Serapis Bey, you know, it's interesting. He said, call upon us, and we will get you to that 51% of karmic payoff so that you can go through your ascension. In other words, we don't even have to be 100%, which is way cool. You know, that means most of us who are judging ourselves because we've done a few bad things, you know, we can easily get to 51% and go through the ascension. And they said we'll work out the rest of our karma on the higher planes, so we don't have to be in judgment of ourselves. We'll be able to work it out. Even if we've killed people, even if we've done horrible things in past lives, you know, and all of us have, we can be forgiven and we can work out that karma. We just have to get ourselves focused on the love of God. And that, Serapis Bey said, focusing on the love of God and the love of self will bring us to that 51% and get us through the ascension.
Well,
Isn't that a beautiful teaching?
That's very beautiful. And I was thinking of something that Winston was talking about the other day, which was the new and everlasting covenant, which we've been talking about for quite some time. And it kind of reminded me of that, because it seemed like we had a plan here to work out our karma, be more perfected, but it would take so many different life cycles, so many reincarnation cycles. And you're saying at this point that it's kind of like what Winston's talking about when the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost came in. It was about sharing this idea that you can do this in one lifetime, that you can get your teachings and your I guess I would call it karma, but I'll let Winston describe that in more detail. But it was about being able to do this in one lifetime. But what you're saying now is this ascension process. If I don't know, you know, what the percentage is, but I mean, it looks like you're saying that we can deal with some of the karma as we move along in the ascension, or once we get to the higher dimensional ascension process. So I don't know how that fits into this new and everlasting covenant. That might be part of the plan. I'm not quite sure. But I'm not quite sure if Winston, can you comment on that, Scott, until we wait for Winston?
Yes. The new and everlasting covenant was a doctrine that I learned about as a Mormon. And, you know, it's one of those doctrines that talk about how Jesus came in and literally paid the price for everybody to be able to get through the ascension. And that's one of the main focuses of Christianity. Now, not only do you have to accept Christ, but you accept the love of Christ, the love teachings of Christ. And this is loving yourself and loving your neighbor.
Right.
And so that's the process. And that takes, you know, the balance. It takes and forces it to go the balance of at least 51% or more by loving your neighbor and loving yourself, and brings that Christ energy in to get you into Christ consciousness. And that raises you up to the point where you will go through the ascension. So just know that the teaching is, and this is through that Christ consciousness, that it raises us up. And so we've got to stop judging ourselves. You know, we've all done a really good job not judging our neighbors. And,
unless you're a Democrat.
Unless you're driving.
Unless you're a Democrat and you're all judging Donald Trump. But you know what, Winston, when you stepped away, I was calling on you actually, and it was talking about the new and everlasting covenant that we've been talking about in our latest Country Roads. And Scott's saying that we can deal with some of this karma in the higher dimension as we ascend. But it immediately reminded me of what you were talking about with the new and everlasting covenant and getting this done in one lifetime as opposed to reincarnating over and over and over and over again. So here Scott's saying, is this part of this when the Holy Ghost entities came and made this new and everlasting covenant? Was ascension part of that? Is that what that was about in part?
Well, the word ascension itself, just means, you're moving up and up in your frequencies and vibration. That's all that it means.
Right.
It's not a mathematical formula. And I really, when Scott starts talking about percentages, I kind of turn that off because I'm more into geometry than I am into mathematics. But let me say this, and I think I've pointed this out. And I've used commerce to demonstrate it, through some of our other reports. And that is, first off, there is no such thing as karma. It only exists when you create it. And there, I went looking for my book, from the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East, to bring that, because there were a couple of words that was in there that if you'll substitute, the words and the concepts and so forth, then all of a sudden karma has no meaning. Now we had talked many times, in some of our earliest interviews. This was the most important thing that I could think of at that time, was to demonstrate there is no such thing as debt. There is no such thing as debt, because why? Because everything is prepaid. And so if you go back to the master known as Jesus, and he was the lamb slain before the foundation of the earth, and then a huge trust was created.
Right.
And so all you have to do is accept the surety, just like the thief on the cross did. And Jesus said, well, you'll be with me today in paradise. The other guy, he was kind of lost. But my point is this. If you dwell upon karma, you'll create it without doubt. And so, rather than concentrating on removal of karma itself, which doesn't exist, only you create it, I think it would be very well for people to practice some of these techniques and so forth that are being spoken of here, to raise your frequencies, to raise your vibrational frequencies. And then there is no such thing as karma. There's no karma to be repaid, because it was prepaid.
Absolutely, Winston.
And so, like I say, if people could ever get a grasp of that one thing,
right,
and it's demonstrated completely in the King James Version, and I've demonstrated it totally in Solutions in Commerce. And the government goes berserk when I do it, because they're the ones who are preventing it. So it's because we don't understand. It's because we don't understand the nature of reality that all of a sudden this concept of karma comes up.
Okay.
And so really, I kind of hedge a little bit when I start talking about 51%, because then people say, well, okay, all I have to do is 51%, because I know how people think. But when we start talking about balancing, it's the balancing of the God within with the God without. And so if you look at the whole Pono, when you're trying to balance the God which is the outer man with the higher self. Then you start to get that balance, you know, to where you bring both things into harmony. And then there's no limit. Once you can do that, there's no limit to where you can go. That's my point.
Well, I don't know about percentages and geometry because I have dyscalculitis myself, but you know,
Well, you were educated in New Jersey, so you can't help it.
dyscalculitis. No, it's a serious condition, really. So anyway, it's no. I mean, okay. So it's the message he got. So we're gonna just see what. Let's continue with that because.
Well, it's okay to say that. It gives people a little bit of courage.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, to push forward.
And
yeah, to push towards some kind of a goal. And so I'm not opposed to it in that thing. But look, folks, don't shoot for 51%. Just keep going as far as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Serapis Bey actually said to me that once you start loving yourself and not judging yourself, it moves the balance toward the ascension.
Yeah.
So just doing that.
Yeah. But Winston, you said there needs. I'm sorry, Scott. There's a delay, and I don't mean to talk over you, but there's just a delay with the internet, so I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
It seems like I'm talking over you. I don't mean to. But you're saying that there needs to be a separation, though, because I mean, you know, Scott, we get to a point where there's so many of us who are kind of living in a different place. We've kind of, you know, than a lot of other people here, and it's very hard to live here and interact with people who you just don't share a frequency with. You know what I mean? Like you're really far off frequency wise. And I think Winston, you were saying at some point we're going to be having a separation so that we can, because you really can't when you have so many people trying to of a low vibration, you know, who really have an impact on your life. They have control over your life or your children in one way or another. It makes it very difficult to maintain your frequency, and I think a lot of people probably experience that. I want to see what both of you have to say about that.
Yeah.
Scott.
Well, let me weigh in on it first.
Okay, and then we'll let Scott. Okay.
Yeah, because you know, see, again, people watch television or go to court and say all these kind of things, and they're always talking about a final verdict. But if you look at things as a continuum and not as a cutting off. For instance, you know, 4951, you know, okay, you mean that's a judgment, that's a cutoff point. But I look at it as a continuum because as you look at the, you know, some of the emblems we have on some of our even most ancient symbols and so forth, it's always that spiral. It's always that continuum. And so, you know, we're not, you know, people who can, you know, come up in their vibrations and so forth, you know, it's not a cutting off, it's a continuum. There is not a final verdict. In very few cases, there are some cases there will be a final verdict, but that's you know, that's rare. Let me put it that way, that's rare. But for most people and souls and so forth, it's a continuum. It's a constant learning. And so, you know, it's not a cutoff point for ascension. You know, it's not either you're ascended or you're not. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. But it's a constant learning. It's a constant ascension. Because when we start talking about ascended masters, okay, where do they stop at? Well, they don't stop anywhere. You see what I mean?
Right.
And so we should not ourselves, you know, limit ourselves to, okay, we made it across the ascension line, you know, now we're going to go into all this wonderful stuff. It don't work that way. Not at all. And so people should be thinking about, okay, well, here's how I am today. You know, what can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week? What can I do, you know, on and on and on and on? Because when you start to understand that concept, now you're dealing with the God within. Mm-hmm. The God within was your divine creation that Dr. Lou talks about with his Ho'oponopono technique. So you know, I'm not you know, a universalist or I mean, I'm not anything really, to be perfectly honest. But what I'm trying to point out is be careful. that you don't consider a final verdict. And that's why I like the spiral of geometry more than I like the mathematics with percentages and stuff.
Got it. Well, we
Yeah.
were hoping for some final verdicts at Gitmo, and with these
There you
military
go
tribunals, that's a good example of final verdict, wouldn't you think, Scott? So go ahead, Scott. You can go ahead from there.
And I agree totally with what Winston is saying. I've just said the 51% because Serapis Bay is teaching that currently and letting people know, it's time, and that doesn't take that much from you. If you've got a lot of self-judgment, you just need to accept yourself and know that the love of God's going to take care of that. But we have got to stop judging ourselves. We've got to stop. And that alone will help us to enter into the grace of God and the love of God. And that creates the environment where we will be blessed with the ascension. And it's determined, it's been prophesied, and it is time.
Let me just go back to this quote you said. It says, instead of focusing on the lack and the judgment of the lack in our lives, shift that conscious behavior thinking into loving and accepting yourself. Could you add more to that? What else? Because I'm trying to help I'm trying to get the message out and give this to many different kinds of people. So I'm just wondering if we have some more adjectives we can use to
absolutely
describe this. How else can we? I mean, it's a thought. I think the one thing I love the most about Louise Hay's books was she taught me something. It was so fundamental, almost embarrassing. But that thoughts were just, and I was younger, were just thoughts. I mean, they're things you can change, and you can get new ones, and you can throw out old ones. And, it's just a thought. And how simple, but how profound, Scott. So the thinking is the problem when we're focusing on lack, and we're focusing on, how do we get out of this programming, this social engineering that we've been engineered through politics, through church, religion, through society. We know that we've been engineered to believe in lack. We've been engineered to believe, we've all been like debt slaves on this planet. So, we need to learn to feel worthy. We need to learn to allow ourselves to feel worthy. I think that's it. You have to give yourself permission, don't you?
Oh, when you talk about the programming, what it does is it brings the vibrations of lack, poor self-worth, low self-esteem, and then we add in actions that others do against us. And that causes us to judge them, judge ourselves. One of the examples I had as an OBGYN was when a woman was raped, she felt unworthy of anything else in her life. And it created this energy of, oh, God, no, nobody's going to want me. Nobody's going to care about me because I've been tarnished. And it's a horrible, horrible thing. And yet, one of the things we need to realize is this is just an illusion. This is just a creation that we have created ourselves.
Exactly.
And so moving back into the love of God and into the concept that Christ consciousness and Christ paid any debt, anything that we do here, that it becomes a non-issue. In other words, we need to let go of that emotional judgment of ourselves so that we can rise above it into the love of God and receive that redemption, receive that love of God. And the love of God shifts everything. And the love of self shifts us. And so it's so important to get out of that self-judgment, no matter what has happened to us, Do not judge yourself any longer. Love yourself and move into the love consciousness. Because just moving into love consciousness will give you abundance. You will have everything you need because God will provide everything that we need and does provide everything that we desire. And so don't want things, don't need things, just open up to the love of God and you will be provided everything that you desire. You know, I had a lot of people saying, well, when's the RV going to happen? When's the event going to happen? I said, you know, it's happening now. Believe it and create it, and it will happen. And so, you know, that was a big message that came out in Colorado and in Taos, New Mexico, because everybody's so concerned about, you know, when's it going to happen? Well, it happens when you believe it happens, because that belief, that faith creates it, and it will manifest right before our eyes. And we move into that with our hope and our faith.
So you're saying that we have this illusion of conditions of lack on the planet. This is an illusion.
Exactly. It's a total illusion. And it was created by those that wanted to gain control of everything. But you know, when we actually start putting ourselves at the higher vibration of abundance and knowing that God takes care of us, all of a sudden everything's taken care of. You know, I went on these trips, everything was taken care of. All I had to do was show up.
Yeah, because thought is the beginning of manifestation. So, and the fact that we've been socially engineered to believe this illusion that there's lack, we maintain that. We even tell ourselves we see it even though we don't see it.
Exactly.
Even though it doesn't exist in reality. Yes.
Yeah.
But we have to give, one of the things I was saying before is I think, and I know this might sound really trivial to some people, but it's also huge. You have to give yourself permission.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, I think, another Louise Hay. I loved her so much. She did so many good things to help people, you know, kind of see, you know, a different perspective on their own life, you know.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the greatest things. Another great thing I learned from her was give yourself permission, because no one else is going to do it. You can't sit around waiting for someone else to give you permission. You give yourself permission to love and accept yourself. You give yourself permission to forgive yourself, maybe what you've done. And it is time for, I mean, what a huge message this is right now about forgiveness. This is huge. It's huge.
Yes.
And about, you know, forgiving yourself and being good to yourself, but not in a conceited way. How do we make sure it doesn't go over? How do we make sure we're doing it the right way and not in a conceited way, you know, like, and become narcissistic, you know? We're not talking about narcissism, though. We want to distinguish this, right?
Well, conceit is a self-judgment. And we can't do that. We need to we should desire to just bring the love of God into us and be non-judgmental of ourselves. And non-judgment of self is probably one of the toughest things we've got going on in the planet right now. And that was the message of Serapis Bey, is stop it. Stop judging yourself and start loving yourself, because that's going to create a whole vibration higher and move us into the ascension. So very important message. And, you know, it's simple. It's very simple. And yet we, in our brains, make it too complex. We go, oh, but what about this? What about that? No, stop. Stop judging yourself. Stop creating that energy of separation and join with the love of God.
So you're saying judgment vibrates at a certain frequency, and it's not in the ascension frequency. For other people who want to hear it put that way, that I think, is that a good way to characterize it? Winston, what would you say?
Yeah, Winston raised his hand up.
Yeah, I had my hand up there. We got to stop using this word judgment for the first thing. You know, when we talk about judging ourselves, you're not judging yourself. You're comparing yourself to others. I'm not smart. Well, that means that somebody that you've seen, you perceive to be smarter than you. Or, I'm not fast enough. So you compared yourself to a runner who's ever so much more talented. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Stop doing that, and take the
Uh,
word judgment out of your vocabulary, because it's self-defeating. Now, that's what I wanted to say about that, because when you say judgment, the only thing you're saying is I'm comparing myself to somebody else. But you're an individual.
right. You're not
And
equal.
so,
Why would you compare yourself to something that you're not
exactly.
equal? Right.
Go back to the God within, and stop worrying about this God without over here. This, this really talented, runner, or this really beautiful model, and all these kind of things. Okay, that's what it is. Why are we so much worried about that? Comparing ourselves to some other entity, which is outside of ourself.
Right. Outside of ourselves, who
So,
have different circumstances, walked a different path, had a different family, had different, all these things are so different. How could we
so
possibly
to get
compare?
rid of
Exactly.
self-judgment, stop comparing yourself to others. You're just
Exactly.
who you
Excellent.
are. Now, I want to go back on something too, because words do have meaning,
Yes.
and I object to using the article the when we talk about ascension. There is no such thing as the ascension. It does not exist.
Mm,
It is ascension.
okay.
It's not the ascension. Just like when we were talking about with Cobra and all them ones about the event. I
Right.
kept saying there is no such thing as the event. Something may happen and it may be an event, but it's not the event. It's the same thing with ascension. Like Scott has pointed out here, you can ascend anytime you want, as far and as high as you possibly can take yourself. It's not any such thing as the ascension. It does not exist. And people really need to stop doing, considering, this, what we're talking about here, using the article the, because you're severely
Right.
limiting yourself when you use that word.
True.
Now,
Because it implies someone's going to miss out on it if they don't catch the boat quick enough.
exactly.
Exactly. So it kind of implies that you're going to be
It's a
excluded.
spiral. It's
Right.
a spiral.
It's
It's
going to
not
exclude
the.
somebody.
Yeah. See,
Exactly. Okay.
this is what I've tried to teach people in commerce, and also in other things, is that the concept of zero and infinity are the exact same value. What happens is that people, through judgment, get stuck on a derivative. Somewhere between zero and infinity, they get stuck on a derivative and say, this is what I want to be, a millionaire. Okay, why would you want to stop there?
Mm.
You see what I mean? And so, it's a continuum. It just keeps going. So why limit yourself by saying the ascension, the event, the? I think we need to be real careful with the use of that article in our conversation.
Excellent point, Winston. Excellent point. And comparing, the whole term comparison, Scott, this is what judgment is. It is comparing, just like Winston said. So this is the comparing part is why do we do that, Scott?
Well, we've been brainwashed into comparing everything, and our school systems are like that. My children are judging themselves every day when they go to school, and they're being judged by other kids, and we need to move away from that so that we teach our children, you're perfect just like you are. And we come with different personalities, and those personalities are developed through the experiences that we have. And so what we should do is know that we are perfect just as we are, and accept ourselves and love ourselves. And when we can teach ourselves that, then we can teach our children that, and move into higher states of consciousness. And I agree with Winston. The ascended masters are ascended masters from this dispensation or this period of time. And they have gone through the process of moving through the non-judgment and moved above that vibration and actually transformed themselves to a higher dimension. And ascending ourselves will be that same process. And we call upon the ascended masters to assist us and lend us that energy so that we can go through that process. And no matter how much our personality has been through judgment and whatever negative aspects it's gone through, this can be overcame just by non-judging ourselves and moving into the love of Christ consciousness.
It's beautiful. We're born perfect. That was an excellent point you made. Not so that we can spend our lives becoming imperfect.
Exactly.
How does that happen? Are we born perfect just to did we incarnate here just to become imperfect?
Oh, I tell you, when I became an OBGYN, the reason I became one was every birth I attended, the heavens opened up, the angels and all the masters were there, and that soul entered into that body, and you could see the heavens every time. I got addicted to seeing the beauty of the heavens. And that's why I became an OBGYN, so I could experience that all the time. And, a lot of people just laugh about that. But let me tell you, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see these beautiful souls coming in and embodying. And it's all a process. And we do it so that we can progress, so that we can experience and become who we are. And we are all an aspect of God. And we're all interconnected. And so right now, we're helping each other get rid of that self-judgment, get rid of the negativity and our negative thinking. Even the thought that you have lack creates it. Exactly. And so it's important to just know that God's going to take care of you. And then you move yourself into a whole new dimension where you're taken care of. Even Siddhartha sitting under the tree, becoming the Buddha. He did that and elevated himself without even knowing it, even though he was just sitting under that tree meditating and connecting with the essence of God. He moved into that higher energy and was taken care of by everybody. Everybody would come by the tree and put food by him, but he was in deep meditation and didn't even need to eat or drink. But everybody was bringing him all this stuff. And, so just connecting yourself to the Christ consciousness, things will be brought to you. You will move into the abundance of God.
So we're born perfect with all of our needs met, and then we start to learn little by little that we are imperfect and that we have lack and we cannot have our needs met. Isn't this crazy?
The programming.
There's the programming, exactly. It's a beautiful message today, Scott. I'm so glad. This is great. I think it's very helpful because I think people, I think it will help a lot of people. And I wanted to see if Winston had anything he'd like to comment on at this point.
Well, just to the viewers. On your spiral, as you move up, different portions of what's said here will resonate with you at a certain level. Don't become discouraged that you don't get the full impact or full import of what's being said here. But don't become discouraged. Don't become discouraged or think that, that you can't attain, higher and higher and higher levels of vibrational frequencies and so forth, like we had mentioned on our previous report that we did with Scott, that various things like, various emotions and really, you need to get past the emotions and get into what's called passion. The gods don't have emotions. The gods have passions. So you start talking about love and hope and faith, charity, and all these kind of different things. You know, if you'll incorporate those into what you're doing. Now, speaking to the ones who are listening to this, if you'll incorporate all those various passions into your life, then you become more and more godlike. And if you'll start to combine, like I had mentioned, you know, Paul in the New Testament gave us a perfect key when he said faith, hope, and charity. He didn't say or, he said and. So faith, hope, and charity, and love, and kindness, and all these kind of things, if you'll take all of those elements and incorporate them into your attitude, into your outlook on life, your vibrations will go through the roof. They really, really will. You know, can you live that way all the time? I don't know. Maybe some could, you know, like Buddha and so forth. But my message might be, again, using words. You know, I've pointed out there's some words here that we talked about that we need to stop using. And another word, you know, that we might want to replace is the word emotion, and replace it with the word passion, because the gods are passionate. And we have that word compassion, which means we are one with the gods in their passion. So these are words, you know, that really, you know, we'd be well served to look at and start to incorporate in how we verbalize what it is that we're, you know, trying to accomplish here. So I just want to throw that in.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Winston. And let me just ask Scott if you have any other comments, or actually, since it was such an incredible blessing that you gave last time with those golden lights and everything, golden light behind you, if you could, you know, if you feel inspired to give a blessing, I think that would really be very beautiful.
Absolutely. Let me just make one little comment.
Certainly.
It was quite interesting. Serapis Bey also taught me that as you meditate, you breathe in perfection. So you breathe in and you think, I'm breathing in the perfection of God into my body. And then as you breathe out through your mouth, you're uncreating the imperfections. So you breathe in perfection into your body, and you breathe out the imperfections and uncreate them so they don't go to anybody else. And this has been very powerful. Since I started doing this, I was on 30 to 40 units of insulin a day because my pancreas had shut down. And when I started doing this breathing, I've been able to reduce my insulin. Literally, the last 4 days, I've only taken 10 units a day of insulin, which means the perfection that I'm breathing in through the scalar energy, you know, whatever your thought is, it creates that potential energy and brings it into your body. So if you create that perfection energy coming into your body and perfecting your body, it will go in and start perfecting it. Well, my pancreas started producing insulin, and it's been dead for a year. You know, my anniversary of my experience with death a year ago that killed off my pancreas, made me have to take insulin and enzymes. That has actually been reversed. And I'm breathing in that perfection, and it is perfecting my body and creating the energy that my body's going back to the divine blueprint with which I was created. And so by doing that, it's actually helped me tremendously on a physical level. And so I just wanted to mention that. So, you know, breathe and focus on perfecting the energies coming in and perfecting your body, and breathing out the imperfections, and uncreate them through your thought, because the scalar energy can create stuff and it can also uncreate it in these dimensions. Well, in any dimension for that matter. So let's go ahead and give a blessing from, it's really interesting. The great divine director is kind of stepping back and saying, we're going to receive a blessing through Serapis Bey today. And Serapis Bey is the Lord of the fourth ray and the white purity energy of the Mother Mary, the Mother Divine, all of the beautiful energies of purity. So we're going to receive that today. Having been commissioned by the Creator of the universe and giving a blessing through Serapis Bey, the divine Shohan of the fourth ray of purity and perfection, we bless you that you know that you are perfect beings of light and love. We bless you that your thoughts will create that purity within your bodies and heal your bodies perfectly through the perfection that you are. We bless you that you will receive the light and love of God, and you will become that light and love through non-judgmental thoughts. Do not judge yourselves, do not judge others, but know that you are one and you were all created by that same God that gives you life, that gives you the opportunity to create personalities, that gives you the opportunity to create worlds and worlds beyond measure. We bless you that you will receive the love of God, that you will receive the abundance of God, and know that it is there for you. All you have to do is know that God takes care of you, that the love of God is with you, and that love creates abundance, prosperity, and everything that you desire in your hearts will be manifest. This 3D is made up of the manifestations of your thoughts. And your thoughts are to be moved into congruence with that abundance, and it will create it. It is creating it, and it is your future. Bless you, bless you, bless you. Heal you, heal you, heal you. You are the light and the love of the world, just as was taught by the Master Jesus. You are the creation of a creator of love, and you are love. So be it, so it is. In the name of the Almighty, I am that I am. So be it, so it is.
So it is.
Thank you for that, Louisa. Thanks for having me on today. And God bless each and every one of you that's within the reach of this. Let everybody know, it's the 6 degrees of separation that keep everybody on the planet separated. If everybody lets 6 people know and has them watch this, or at least give them the message to love themselves and don't judge yourselves. I think that I know it will create an energy that will spread throughout the earth and create the abundance and event that we are going to participate in.
Well, thank
and
you
are
for that.
participating in.
No, that was very beautiful, and this was a beautiful message. Thank you so much for coming on to Goldfish Report and delivering this message, and Winston, thank you so much for your divine wisdom, which I do cherish, both of them. So It's very
It's
nice
just
having
some good old hillbilly logic. That's all it is.
you.
Hey, that's where we need to be
There
in
you
that
go.
logic.
Yeah. One of the things you said in your prayer was your thoughts are your future. So I wanted to leave that quote with our viewers because it absolutely is. And if we only really understood how impeccable we need to be with our thoughts and our words, because everything we think, we are manifestors, and that's been the big secret that's been hidden from us. So whatever, what do they say? Where attention goes, energy flows. Right.
Yes.
So having said that, thank you
Now,
both.
since that came out of Serapis Bay,
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
just notice the light went bright behind me. It wasn't a golden, but it was a whitish light of purity. So
I think we need to get
it's quite.
right.
Serapis wanted to tell you that it hit everybody. It's not just behind me, it hit everybody on the planet
Excellent.
because he's here to help. So,
All right,
quite
that's excellent.
interesting.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to get this put out today and get this message out to all the people who view and listen to Goldfish Report. Please remember to subscribe to our new to our BitChute channel, and also we are on the we do have a new channel on YouTube, and of course this will be posted there as well. We are going to, our last report did over 40,000 views pretty quickly, so it was really a blessing. I think we reached so many people. It was really a lovely message, and were very well received. And of course, it's a great counter to my POTUS reports because, not everybody, they're
And make sure the audience shares the message with at least 6 other people because we need this to go out to the entire planet.
absolutely, we
So
sure do.
share with 6 people, have those, and tell those 6 people to share it with their 6 people, and let's just get this out there because we need to get all our thoughts on the same page.
Absolutely. If we want to create a beautiful future, we have to be thinking it in our minds and in our hearts,
Exactly.
and we will create it. Exactly. Well, thank you again. And of course, viewers can also find us on our Patreon site to become a patron and help keep the Goldfish Reports messages going. You can also go to our website where all the updated links to where you can find our reports will be posted. And we will, until next time, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And we will be back on Friday with Country Roads, of course, with our friend Winston. And we will see all of our viewers next time. And thank you both so much for being here today.
You're so welcome.
Been my pleasure.
Okay. And so, folks, until then, thank you for viewing. And this concludes this edition of the Goldfish Report.